So, this chapter of Kengan Omega seems to have some pretty interesting information besides the actual fight of the chapter, which is between Hastumi and Kaneda. Right off the bat, we get to hear that Ryan just got off-screened by Gilbert Wu and the West faction. Now, granted, yes, I am kind of ignoring the Wu clan and the Kure clan that came together against the Westward faction here, and it seems like they lost as a collective, so it was more of a group fight than anything else. But it still stands that Ryan got off-screened a year ago and he's been missing ever since. And Oma is just hearing about this story apparently. So here we are. The Gilbert Wu stocks are now, they're basically sky high at this point. Right? If there were any Ryan supporters that thought okay, maybe after the fight with Edward Wu, Ryan was stronger than Edward Wu. Now Gilbert Wu is just if you think about it, if you still have that opinion, that means Gilbert Wu is pretty high up there. Although since it was off screen, we would have to see the fight to know exactly what happened. But I think everyone can guess more or less what happened in this battle against the Westwood faction. But ultimately, it results in a Ryan L. And Ryan has been quote unquote missing ever since. We don't know where he is, but it seems like because of this loss, Ryan has now gone on, basically, he's gone training. And when he comes back, my man Ryan, I thought I was going to do a video, right, of how strong Ryan would be at this point in the story, because I was assuming Ryan was going to be training to basically surpass Edward Wu, because I'm not of the opinion that Ryan became stronger than Edward Wu towards the very end. I think he just took advantage of a certain situation. But that aside, I thought Ryan would be training in this time, but it seems like he was fighting against the Westwood faction, which also makes sense, to be honest, since the Westwood faction are still technically a threat and they're still around and they're still affiliated with the Worm, so they're still a problem no matter how you slice it. But now, considering the fact that he's straight up lost, yeah, this will put a fire under Ryan, and I can't wait to see him again and see how goated he becomes, because I still have a lot of other theories concerning Ryan and Oma, which we get to hear. I forgot this girl's name from the Kure clan. He calls Oma Ryan's best friend. I see a few people that were kind of confused that Oma is Ryan's best friend, but it makes complete sense, honestly. In fact, I've had this opinion since chapter 50, I think, chapter 50 of Kengan Omega, where Ryan and Oma come back together, and Ryan in that chapter refers to Oma as his partner, which is not he doesn't address anyone else like that. I've never seen it before. So there's definitely a very special bond between Oma and Ryan, even though they fight all the time. Bro, they're waiting to fight each other at almost every chance they get. But enough about Ryan, enough about Edward Wu. The fight between Hastumi and Kaneda is actually shaping up pretty interesting right now. And Hastumi, I think a lot of people kind of expected Hastumi to be the stronger fighter, and he's become incredibly powerful. I think Hastumi is good enough to go up against people I would say Jurora, I would say Agito, hell, I would go as far as to say Kuroki. I think Hastumi is now at that level. And it's good to see Hastumi at this level. And the reason why he's actually at this level is more so how pre-initiative has sort of boosted his stats so much, because he used to dodge off of reflex, it seems like. At least in Kengan Ashura, when we saw him just basically duck and weave attacks at a very close margin, Hastumi can now do that far better, and it's an overall worse situation for any of his opponents, especially Kaneda, who just doesn't have foresight on that level. And you add that on top of the fact that Hastumi has a martial arts advantage over Kaneda, and it's just not looking good for Kaneda at all in this fight. It's actually kind of surprising. Hastumi, he's straight up dominating him, and it seems as though he's also at the top of his game. This is what Oma says, although I'm not too sure if it means he still has the inconsistency problem. So in theory, Hastumi could have been weaker coming into this fight. You know, is he still like an inconsistent fighter still, even after like all his training? That's a question I still have, honestly. But seems like it's over for Kaneda. People are like, yeah, it's probably wraps, but Kaneda still has his predetermination, and it's gonna be interesting to see how this works. Because think about it this way: the fight between Hastumi and Kaneda. If you think about it, think about Hastumi as a character who can see the future, right, of a fight and is stronger than his opponent. That's pretty broken. But Kaneda, on the other hand, has the ability to manipulate the future. And so he can manipulate the person who can see the future's actions, basically. And that's basically Kaneda's advantage. And he leverages pre-initiative against his opponent. Now, because of this, I think predetermination is a direct answer to pre-initiative. So I wonder how you could go about countering predetermination. I mean, one way that could, in theory, is if you stopped using pre-initiative and just worked off of reflexes. At that point, Kaneda's technique wouldn't work on you, but then you would be more so at his level, so it would give him a better shot at that point. But that's one way it could work in theory. But the predetermination technique really only works against people who have pre-initiative of like the highest level. And this technique, depending on how well it performs against Hastumi, it might actually be just as broken, if not more broken, against pre-initiative. It might be like the perfect kryptonite for people like Hastumi and Agito and Kuroki and Lolong. But I do want to see just how predetermination can actually be balanced off in terms of the drawback. But for now, Hastumi has sort of catched on to the fact that he's making moves that when he makes them, he realizes like, wait a minute, I could have actually made a better move there. Why did I choose this move? And again, he has yet to realize that his pre-initiative is what's being manipulated here. And we'll see what happens, because I think Hatsumi is smart enough, he has a pretty good fighting IQ to eventually catch on to what Kaneda is doing. The problem here, or I would say the win con for Kaneda here, is that he's able to win the fight before Hatsumi realizes what's happening. Because if he does realize what's happening, then I think Hatsumi will find an antidote to the problem. And I think predetermination works so much more better when your opponent isn't expecting predetermination. I think that's really the crux of it. But I think Kaneda has a shot, honestly, as long as he does what I think, his win con is. But he's actually performing fairly well, although again, he is the underdog in this fight. Most people are expecting him to lose, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm also kind of expecting Kaneda to lose. I am cheering for him, but Hatsumi's just, I think Kaneda has too much working against him. If he does win, bro, I'm making a video on predetermination and telling you how broken it is. I'm making it. But yeah, that's it. That's the chapter. So yeah, and the review as well. So don't forget to like, sub, all that fun stuff. And until next time, take it easy.